Hello and welcome to the Year 12 Parent Engagement Meeting. Normally we would be meeting in the hall to have a discussion about the ways that we can help your son or daughter settle into sixth form study, explain some of the differences between studying in Year 11 and Year 12 and how we can make best advantage of our time at Hampton Academy Trust sixth form. Obviously we can't do that in person, so we've got some slides and some presentation just to go through and help with that. Firstly, some introductions. My name's Mr. Walls. I'm the Trust Director of Sixth Form, so I oversee at Hampton College and Hampton Gardens. The other voice you'll hear today is Mrs. Weston. She is Post-16 Leader for Hampton College. Also amongst the team we have Mr. Jordan, who's second in Sixth Form at Hampton College, Mrs. Britton, Student Support Assistant at Hampton College, and Miss Elliott, Student Support Assistant at Hampton Gardens. All vital people who you'll get to know and students will get to know to help them through their time, alongside their subject teachers and tutors. The biggest change that will happen this year is obviously around being COVID secure. Year 11 students, if they were here, would have finished on sometime in March, about March the 18th, and it was a long time ago and school has changed a lot in that time. It's really important that they understand the regulations and guidelines that we've put in place, and we've done that for their safety and safety of all the students and staff here. We have to work together to do that. We all have to follow these guidelines. When students arrive at school in Key Stage 5 in sixth form, they should come through the main entrance. They will have a lanyard with a barcode on that they need to scan on in the morning. As they then enter the school through the main doors, there is a one-way system going around the school. Students have had this explained, including stairs that go some for up and some for down. It is really important that they follow those systems. Even if, as they move around, their class seems nearer, they must still go the longer way to get to where they need to be to follow that system. Something we have to do to make sure we're all moving in the same way. Each year group or bubble has their own area, their own zones. There is a bit more movement with the sixth form. They obviously have to move to different classrooms to see their teacher, judging by or going by the number of groups that they're in. They cannot be kept in separate groups because of their options. Social distancing, however, is still expected, and as they move around, there are markings on the floor to show that, and students must try and remember that when meeting at break time or lunchtime. Each year group has a separate area at break time. The area for sixth form is the dining hall. They have the dining hall available lessons 1 and 2 and at break time. There will be food at break time as well, but it is important they follow the rules of the dining hall in terms of social distancing, sanitising hands and not touching the food as they go in. As they are in there, they also need to leave the chairs in place and not move them to sit with groups so they're kept together. There will not be any access to canteen facilities for sixth form at lunchtime. There are lots of other year groups they have to get in there from lesson 4 and lunchtime. As older students, we're giving them that responsibility that they can leave site, okay, to go and get food, preferably to go home if possible, okay, and eat there. If there is no possibility of that happening, there is some space in the sixth form study centre, and students must bring their own food, but there will not be cutlery or crockery available. This is something we have to put in place to ensure everybody's safety, and hope that obviously you can support us with that. Our expectations. To start to get everything in right from the first point, we need to really outline our expectations so students know what to be doing so they can be focused on learning and not worrying about these other issues. Punctuality is a vital skill. We all have to be on time for work, and students need to develop this now so that they're on time for their lessons. Although students now don't have a tutor time as such, they need to be in at 8:30 to go to their lesson 1. If that lesson is free, they do not have to come in at that point, they can come in at break. Once there, their teacher will deliver the tutor time activities and start lessons from that point. So lessons do not start at 8:45 as it was previously, they need to be in at 8:30. Attendance to lessons is also vital. Every lesson needs to be attended as much as is possible. If students miss up to 5% of attendance over time, that can statistically lead to potentially a drop of a grade in a subject. So it's really important we get them in as much as possible. But we obviously understand if people are unwell, we have to work with that and help students around that. Students can go off site at lunchtime as described, but we would need them back on time, ready to go for lesson 5. If students don't have a lesson 5, they may stay at home at that point, and we would again encourage them to do so as much as possible due to space available. If students have SSP, silent study periods, or personal development, they still count as lessons and they must return for those. Attached with this, there is also a copy of the dress code that we expect from students. This is to ensure that students are coming ready to learn in a business sort of dress and environment, so that they're focused and ready to learn from there. The things that normally crop up with that are hoodies, jeans and trainers. And our advice is, if you are not sure about something, I would suggest don't wear it. Please think of something else to wear. Most importantly, students need to be prepared for learning. A lot of sixth form learning is about organisation. Students will have a lot more emphasis on them to be ready for their classes. So this includes bringing homework, ensuring it's completed, having the resources they need. Do they need textbooks? That's a discussion they need to have with subject teachers. Do they have all the equipment they need? Okay, we wouldn't expect in sixth form somebody to be saying, I forgot my pen, for example. All of those sorts of things should be prepared and ready. We'd also expect a lot of respect for other people. Relationships with staff change a little bit. It is a bit more treated as grown-ups amongst the sixth form, and as young adults would expect that respect back to them. But this will include conversations about phones, for example. Just like lower school, around school, sixth formers are not allowed to use their phones or have their phones out. That includes earphones as well. They're setting an example to the lower school, so they're not allowed them. We don't allow that in sixth form. If they're in sixth form areas, they are then allowed to use them. Chewing gum is not allowed. I'm going to take this opportunity to remind you that the school is also a nut-free school. I hope we don't get to this point with anybody, but we do have a code of conduct step system. There is an attachment with this that you can see, whereby we'll have to discuss about attendance and punctuality and any behavioural issues that come up. Firstly with the student, and then following up with parents from that. This will be emailed out as well, so please have a look at that and understand that. Hampton Academies Trust is joint provision. It runs across 2 sites, Hampton College and Hampton Gardens. The majority of the subjects are taught at Hampton College, with the exception of Level 3 BTEC IT and Health and Social Care, which are taught at Hampton Gardens. If your son or daughter is studying one of those subjects, they are a Hampton Gardens student, where they will be registered in the morning. Their lesson 1, they need to be in for 9 o'clock to allow them to come in without mixing with the other year groups. So they'll be registered from 9 o'clock, students meeting there. They have their system that has been explained to them. But also they would need to spend their freeze and silent periods there. Okay, so if they have silent study or freeze, it's really important that they go to Hampton Gardens to do that. Other than that, it is one sixth form. Okay, we run the same policies, the same ideas. When we have activities and events, it is all run as one, so that the Hampton Gardens students, Hampton Colleges can come together to do that. So what does a typical week look like for a sixth former? The majority of our students have chosen 3 courses. Each subject has 5 hours per course. They will have 2 lessons, lesson 1 and 2, 2 lessons 3 and 4 on a different day, and then on a separate day, 1 lesson in the afternoon. They will also have 5 hours of what we call silent study, either in for Year 12 in the common room at Hampton College or Hampton Gardens for the Hampton Gardens students. 1 lesson per fortnight is PSHE or personal development, which we'll discuss later as to what is covered in those. That leaves 9 hours free per fortnight of lessons that aren't registered, They're called frees by many students. I'm reluctant to use the word freeze because they're not free from doing work. Students are still expected to do work within that time. The 5 hours per subject is within class. To perform at the best levels that they can, students really need to be matching that 5 hours outside of class as well. So that's 15 hours a week of extra study. 10 of those can be done within school. So when you break that down, that becomes a bit less that needs to be done at home. And obviously the more that is done around that in terms of independent study, the more success students are likely to get. So please have a look at that and see, there we go, there's the hours they're expected to be in. The times that students aren't in if they don't have lessons or silent study 1 and 2 or in the afternoon.
Good evening, my name is Mrs. Weston. Wanted to talk to you about our PSHE programme. So we've got quite a varied programme and it follows the PSHE Foundation's guidance for good PSHE lessons. So that will include study skills. In October we're going to focus on British Black History, and then over the course of the 2 years we're going to look at health and well-being and relationships and living in the wider world, so economic well-being, careers and the world of work. So some of the topics you can see on the screen in front of you are some of the things that we will be covering. We cover this through PD lessons, which are once a fortnight, through assemblies, which will be digital for now, through collapse days, and visitors that come in as well. So in tutor time we have a different session every day. Tutor time starts at 8:30 a.m. and for now students will be going to their lesson 1. So on a Monday, if they have lesson 1, they will go to the lesson 1 teacher and they will have Careers Mondays where they will learn about all the different careers that are available to them, skills gaps, look at the apprenticeships, look at jobs, look at recruitment process, look at universities and UCAS process. So it's only 15 minutes a week, but it all adds up, and it's all of the things that the government would like us to cover and that meet the Gatsby benchmark. On Tuesday we have a charity project, so students will be thinking of their own charity project within their lesson groups. Obviously it's going to have to be something that's COVID secure at the moment, so it's a bit of a challenge for them. Then we have an assembly on Wednesday, which is done in the classrooms, delivered through Teams or maybe a PowerPoint like this one. Then on Thursday they use a resource called The Day, which is sort of current affairs, and they think about and discuss some of the issues of the day, obviously. And then on Friday we have a quiz, which is just for fun.
One thing that really changes, I think, when you get to sixth form is the mindset of students. Sixth form is a big step up. They've got a lot more independent work to do, a lot more where they have to think about it, perhaps more than they did at GCSE, and really put that into place. And students are going to make mistakes. They're going to find it hard. They're going to get things wrong. What's really important there is we don't adopt, as you can see on the left-hand side, the idea of a fixed mindset, okay? Somebody with a fixed mindset thinks your personality is set, the intelligence level you have is set, and you can't do anything to control that. If you make a mistake, that you've failed, and that's that. We would encourage students to abandon that line of thought and as much as possible go for a growth mindset where your personality develops over time. You'll grow older, things change and you understand things more. Your intelligence grows. The more you work at things, the more you practice it, the better you get at it. Okay, the more you understand things, the easier the next bit becomes. So that level of growth mindset where the more you put into it and understand it, the better it's going to become later on, the easier it's going to perhaps come later on. But there will be mistakes. People make mistakes. That's absolutely fine. The important point from making a mistake is when you've made it, you look back on why and how you would change that to make sure you don't repeat that mistake and get it right next time. And each time you make a mistake, reflect on what you've done to think, right, okay, that's how I can make it better. That's how we do learning, and that's a sort of skill and mindset that is really going to see you through sixth form. There will be times when that becomes a bit more difficult, and that's where the support of staff will help with that. But it's really important students take that growth mindset to think, okay, it's okay to go wrong, but I'm going to change that. I'm going to look at it and think, well, I can do better next time. So what are the study techniques that are needed at level 3? There's slightly different courses. A-levels are much more obviously exam focused, and it's a level of constant sort of going over things with revision as you go through. BTEC still have an element of exam, so they will need that, but also a lot more coursework, so the organisation level is different. Let's start with A-levels. What are the important things you need to know? Most courses are 2-year courses with exams at the end. There will be some level of coursework within that, but the bulk of the marks come from your exams. So it's important that you are constantly checking your understanding. Use your silent study lessons in your free time. And if you think I haven't got any work, go back and look at something that you've not done for a couple of months, maybe longer. By the time you get to year 13, do you remember the things from year 12? So you're constantly revising and working as you go along. Use past paper questions. The more you've seen exam papers, the more prepared you are to do them when they crop up. Okay, your teachers will set them through the time, but they are available and you can find some of them online. It's really important you go and look at that and try and answer it. Try and get into the understanding of how they ask those questions. And you will get bits wrong, but that's okay. As we've already said, go back to it and correct it. Okay, redo the questions to improve. That's how we learn in sixth form. It's that level of independent study to do that. At BTEC, much more about the organisation and meeting deadlines. This year, the deadlines are going to be even more important with how the results went last year. I think that this time the BTECs are going to be very closely looking at deadlines being met, work being at the standard it should be. So it's really important that students are organised to meet the deadlines and go from that. That involves realising when the work's been set and planning it out over a period of time. Most of the work set will perhaps have maybe a 2 or 3 week period to say, right, this is the work that needs to be completed. Sometimes it might be less, sometimes it might be more. But it's up to the student to plan when they're going to do that and not think, oh, crikey, I've got a bit of work I need to hand in tomorrow. I need to do it now. Make sure that they follow those steps. Subjects will give sheets and guidance. They'll be teaching to help them with their assignments, and then they use that information to meet the assignment task. It's important they use that information, that they use further information to develop their knowledge and then put in from there. Now, the idea of asking for help is under the level 3 BTEC, but that is absolutely crucial in both areas, whether you're doing A-levels or BTECs. If you don't understand something, speak to your teachers. That's what they're there for. That's what the difference perhaps between A-level now and GCSE or level 3 and level 2 is that you get more time and the teachers are there to ask questions from and will be prepared to help. So please, if you're not sure, ask.
So students always ask us, how do we get top grades? How do we get good grades? And we did carry out some research a few years ago. We did a survey and we interviewed some of our top performing students to find out what they did to get those top grades. So we interviewed some students who were in year 13 who at the time we had AS levels and they'd got A's in their AS levels. So this is what they said, and so from that we sort of made these steps just to put it into sort of a diagram, a simple way for students to understand how to achieve the top grades. So step 1 is reading the specification or the syllabus, dividing it into chunks and then revising those individual topics. Step 2 is going back over notes, maybe using textbooks, online resources, condensing that information down, so making mind maps, flashcards, Memorize, for example, is an app or a website that allows you to do that. They'll do that in different ways, but that's step 2. Now, a lot of students don't move past step 2 in their revision, and they are students who then struggle to get the higher grades. So step 2 is that sort of revision is very basic revision, and really students should be moving beyond that. So then we need students to make sure they get past papers. Now, most teachers will give those out, but they can be found on the internet for a lot of exam boards. Complete them in time conditions. That's very important. Some students will spend 2 hours writing, what would be allocated 20 minutes in an exam. That's great to start with, but as time goes on, you would never be able to write that much. So it sort of gives them false hope of what they can achieve in that time. As it says on there, a student who achieved 3 grades did 1 paper a day and 2 to 3 papers at the weekend in the months before the exam. So lots of exam papers in the run up to the exams. Step 4 is then getting the mark scheme. So sometimes we'll do this in class, but sometimes students would be expected to do this independently. check the mark scheme, mark it themselves, make sure they've covered the key points. The exam boards also release examiner reports, and that's basically where they tell you where students went wrong in the previous exams. So they basically make a big long list of all the mistakes students make. And again, it's something that it's really important for students to understand the common mistakes so that they can avoid them. And then step 5 is going back over the questions, so getting that folder full of past paper questions that the teachers marked and having another go at them. So not the ones they got maybe full marks on or top marks on, but the ones that they didn't do so well on. So going back over those questions, redoing them, remarking them, and then maybe redoing them again, back over, practicing and practicing. And that is really how students get the top grades. And the people who get the A grades and the A-star grades are the people who do all of that. And if they're only going to step 2, sort of, which is probably at GCSE levels, the sort of revision they would have done, and that tends to be the lower grades that they achieve from that. Okay, so in sixth form we often find that students struggle, and they struggle for lots of different reasons, but one of the greatest reasons they struggle is procrastination. So there's lots of reasons why people procrastinate. There's a great TED talk on it actually, but there's some of the reasons on the screen in front of you. But denial and excuses are, in teenagers, one of the biggest things. So that's one thing that we try to work with them to try help them to learn to stop procrastinating and to move forward and to just motivate themselves to just get the things done that they need to do. So it's something really we'll need support with from you at home, and I'm sure you'll need our support in school and work together to try help them to procrastinate less. Okay, this diagram, I find it just very interesting. There's a lot going on in it, but it just sort of explains the process of transition. So obviously they're transitioning from year 11 to year 12. Some of your children are transitioning from another school as well, which is really, really difficult. So it just shows the different stages, and it shows, I think, the tangents that they can go off on where things go wrong. So I think all of them at some point soon are going to go through the can I cope, and the mathematicians and the scientists often get to that point a little bit sooner, because obviously these courses are incredibly difficult and that sort of hits them quite early on. Then it's up to them really how they progress. So you can see the different stages that they'll go through. The ones in denial, they're the ones obviously we have to give some extra support to. The disillusioned, hopefully we don't get down to those negative things of depression, etc. But hopefully we go through the purple curve where we're then gradually accepting what needs to be done and figuring out how they need to move forward. And it will mean some adjustments to their study and to their techniques and to the way they work in their free time and at home. Okay, so we have lots of support on offer. Hopefully you've seen the weekly newsletter. There's some links in there if any of your children are finding it a difficult time over the next 2 years, mental health. There's loads of different links on there. They do have their form tutor. Normally they'd see them every day, but obviously now they're going to be just seeing them as the tutor can get around to see them. Tutors have 1 hour a fortnight where they can pop in, and they're going to set up appointments with each of their tutees. So really it's going to be the class teachers or they're going to be the main point of contact. So if they could, let their class teachers know if they're having any problems in the subject area. We've also got the sixth form student support assistants, so Mrs. Britton in Hampton College and Mrs. Elliott in Hampton Gardens. And yeah, so if they need anything, if they just go and see them, and they're in there 5 hours a week with them, so they always know where they are and how to find them, and they will just take them into the office if they need a private conversation. We always advise a self-referral service, which is what the doctors advise often for people who have low mood, maybe possibly depression or anxiety difficulties. Obviously we're not doctors, we can't diagnose that, so the self-referral system is a website that you go on and then you fill in a questionnaire, and then it gets triaged and the mental health team will contact individuals if need be. Every year we set up a wellbeing group, so we'll hope to set that up again this year. Obviously, as I said, with the PSHE lessons where we do look at mental health and we do look at, well-being in general and eating well and sleeping, exercising, that sort of thing. And then we have collapse days. The November collapse day won't happen this year for obvious reasons. but the March one is planned hopefully to go ahead, and we will look at some wellbeing issues at that point. If you need anything, please contact us. Miss Britton's probably the best person to start with, but she always will pass whatever on to whoever it needs to go to. And we are all there for your child to give them as much support as possible. And if they need anything, if they let us know, they can email us, they can come and speak to us. But I think that one of the best things about Hampton College and Hampton Gardens too is the supportive staff, and everybody cares. So if you just encourage them to come talk to us if they need anything. Okay, so in preparation for careers, university jobs, we have a tutor time programme, which I've talked about earlier. So we have Careers Mondays. There's quite a lot of information in there. We have an Aspire A-Star programme, so that's for our high ability students who averaged at a grade 6 at GCSE. We obviously in normal times we put on trips to Cambridge University, etc., and we will do our best to organise whatever we can within obviously the government regulations. We have a collapse day in March, which again hopefully will go ahead, and what we do on there is on the screen in front of you. Normally we'd take students not going to university to the job show, which is around February time, so obviously if that's running we'll do that again. We give people one-to-one support with job applications, apprenticeship applications, whether it's reading CVs and covering letters, or we get sent opportunities which we share with students as well. We also do interview practice. And then we have a UCAS week in June, and that's where we sort of kick off the whole university application. So June of year 12, they start their application. The application final deadline is the 15th of January, so it's quite a long process, and we give them lots of help and support with that. We do have student leadership opportunities, so we have ambassador roles, which we are reviewing for 2021. We used to run it from September to September, but we found that new students who were new to the school found it difficult to apply for any of the roles because they weren't settled in at that point. So we've decided to change it from to begin in December, so it will run from January to January. So if any new students want to apply, it gives them the time then to settle in, to have the confidence really to do that. So we have an SSLT, which is a student senior leadership team, and there's 3 roles for that. In the photo you can see some previous student leaders. So yeah, that will be available, so that will start in December. There'll be a whole application process for that. Just hope you'll encourage your child to apply for it. It's great for their character development, it's great for their leadership skills, it's great for their CV and their UCAS application, and it's great to give something back to the community, which I think a lot of our students are keen to do.
So that's quite a lot of information. Hopefully take that on board and work on that in the start, in this sort of first period of time as students are settling in, to help them get established. Thank you for watching. I'm sure there's going to be some questions. If so, please email me on the email address shown, and I'll get back to you as soon as possible to solve those questions. We look forward to hearing from you and getting some time to know you over the course of the next 2 years. Thank you for your time.